Order the committee of the whole meeting for December 17, 2024. Roll call.
Babcock,
Yes, here.
Ready,
Here.
Flock,
Here.
Sima,
Here.
Wright,
Here.
Gustafson. Here.
Item 1 is approval of the minutes for the meeting committee of the whole November 19th, 2024. A motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Any additions, changes, or corrections? Hearing none, can I have a roll call?
Wright,
Yes.
Sima,
Yes.
Petty. Yes. Babcock,
Yes.
Yes.
Next item is public comments. Is there any public comments? Somebody? No old business, new business. It's item 2, discussion recommendation of an agreement with North Park Public Water District related to repainting of water towers within the village limits. You have a memo in your file about this. We briefly mentioned this, I believe, at a prior board meeting. This would be for the water tower. It's district tower number 3. This is at 6008 Broad Street, so down here downtown. This is the water tower. They're doing their regular, North Park Water District is doing their regular refurbishment and repainting of this tower. We've discussed with them the possibility in the past about putting a village logo on the tower, sort of publicize the village and sort of make it more of a community tower and sort of bring it to the village. They come back with us for this project. They offered to allow us to put our logo on there and essentially just pay the amount for the actual logo portion of the painting. So you shall paint for whatever logo goes on there, which would be the $12,000 that the quote we have there. You have in your file a copy of the resolution that their board passed, but they obviously have to have their board approve anything. So their board approved this, and now we're asking if the village would like to have our logo on the water tower for that $12,000 amount. What's also in the capital fund or the project fund, at least this year, the original budget this year will be, we've discussed this in the past, would be creating a new logo for the village. So that would be happening early in the spring here. I've got a list of sort of a selection of logos I've liked. I've had Jaya reach out to the different municipalities, find out who they had their designers. So we do have some quotes for that. We've got some companies that will work with us and work with the village here to create that new logo. So we would start that probably very early in probably in February here. There's no reason to hold off on that once we pass the budget. And then that new logo would sort of be the unveiling, would be that water tower project there. That won't start painting until around April or May. That's why you're my question. It'll be whenever they sort of get the weather ready in the spring, but she told me it would probably be no earlier, she being the director of North Park Water, that it would be no earlier than April. So that's generally what we're looking for. So this is our committee. Any questions? You can ask those. Sure.
I don't think we should rush a logo just to get it on.
Yeah,
No water.
we should definitely want
I
that.
will get it. I would like to have public comments, and I'd like to have maybe people voting on things. So I think that just like we had to go through the processes for the RFP and develop things, I think that logo is just as important as that. And we should probably go through proper steps to get to that.
Yep. So I say we start, and like I said, you're right. If we don't have one that we like, that everybody's on board with, absolutely, we don't want to just stick it out there by permanent area. We can work on. This is an additional amount to what they're already paying for that water tower painting, so they'll do that without us anyway. But I would say we start in February here with the design firm. I don't know, it would take more than a few months to do. So start it, try it, and then like I said, if we don't get it, we don't get it.
I just like to have the public look at and comment as to what the village logo will look like. I think the one that we have now is made without, any of us, and I can't stand it. And
Well, it was made without any of us.
I
But it
meant
was
like-
made with
I
public
meant-
input,
I meant
yeah.
like the as
Yeah.
a resident.
Yeah, it was definitely at board meetings, I mean, I don't hear for it, but, we did, we'll definitely engage on this as well.
Can't keep everybody happy, but at least you give them a chance to be a critic.
I don't like the location.
The Broads Tower.
Yeah. Back by the cemetery, that's that one. So it's,
But it's the one they're doing this year.
right, but you don't see it. We're gonna spend $12,000 on something that would as many people to see it as possible.
We don't have to do it either, I mean, we can contact them too, to find out what their schedules are for there's obviously several other Chickadee Ridge, or that area. There's just one Chickadee Ridge and one by, yep, couple over that direction.
I meant to
I think
look
those
at
are the main
Riverside, see if it sticks up over the trees and.
Yeah.
No, that wasn't there. They just had proximity.
We can get a hold of North Park too and see when the schedule is, when those are scheduled for repainting.
Picture where they're all at. They know. Two.
Names. Yeah. Those are the main ones, I think those three are in the village limits.
What's up there?
There's two over that way and then.
Two. Yeah. I don't know. It's like-
Well, before we go any further, just do a poll, yes or no, for that water tower. If you don't like the location, vote no. Want to see it, say yes, and then pursue the logo thing. Like.
I'd like to take a look at where it's at first.
cemetery.
I know it's up there. I mean, I'll be honest, I've never looked up.
Yeah. You can't see it.
I haven't looked up yet. How am I gonna look up? Yeah, I'd like to at least take a and decide. I guess we'd have to push it to January 21st, but
With that, I mean, we're not in a super hurry on, we're gonna proceed with the logo project regardless, right? So, I mean, the design
yeah, those
project.
take quite a while.
So, I mean, we're not pushing this until right now, anyway, so we can absolutely wait until.
If you don't like the logo, it's no place nobody sees it.
There you go. Kind of look up.
There we go, anyway.
I mean, what I don't want to run into is
How about-
if this is our only crack at it for the next 15 years.
What I can do is get a hold of them and find out what their schedule is for the
We do
next.
not want a public art no chill. Like what's on the free building.
That's right.
Oh,
Sue?
Yeah,
Location of the
I'm
logo?
in favor of it.
And Justin?
I don't like the location. I'd rather see us,
Okay.
like I said, go through the design process, get our new signs made.
Okay.
But-
Mike?
But I would expect that.
Yeah, to me, it's just about the logo. So I mean, if they put it there, let's get the logo, whether it's on
Up
this
and
tower or
going.
that tower, you know, like.
Okay. William?
Yeah,
And
I think
about
the logo is
building?
important. I think the logos, can you hear me?
Yes.
I think the logo is important, and I think that we've got the right process in place with Place Foundry, who we have working on it. And I guess when I look at this document here, it looks like we're just saying if we have the logo, we're just gonna pay our $12,000. Is there more than one water tower? The only one I'm thinking of is the one by Hawks Point. Is there?
There are two other water towers in the village. I think it's right, the two, yeah.
So is it 12,000 per water tower?
This is right now, this is just for the one water tower, but what I will do between now and I guess the time we meet, now this tomorrow, whatever, I will find out from North Park what their schedule is for the repainting of the other two towers.
Yeah, when I listen to everybody's response, it looks like, we're all in agreement about,
Yeah.
hey, we need to have the right logo, and that's the critical path. And if we don't have it done by then, but I would say if they're just asking us to say, do we want them to do it if we have a design, then I would say, yeah, I mean, but we can't do it until we have our logo.
So I'm gonna hold off putting this, we can talk about it again at a board meeting, I will find out from, or committee meeting, I will find out from North Park. Probably hold off putting this particular resolution on until we get that information, we can discuss it maybe under old businesses in general. And give you an update on those, then we can decide if we want to proceed with it, so I will find out from. Kelly Saunders the schedule. for the meetings.
I'll explain one, if that's coming up.
Yeah, no, I say, well, yeah,
Tons of people will see that.
yeah, absolutely.
How do I look up?
Where to go?
Maybe you get them to change the color.
Blue, the light blue, the wet. Okay, that's answers those questions. And number 3 is discussion of 2025 capital projects. So I'll go over some public input here. Essentially, we're at. So these are current lists in general. And we'll go over, this is just a very brief tonight, just sort of show you what we're doing. We're talking about, we're thinking about, and go over in depth in all of this in the next in the next meetings here, and we'll email you out full packets of these. Unless you want like versions, but I will email full packets of the projects. But these are technically. As we let me pull up my expression. As we start recalculating, budgeting, we're already locked into several projects for next year. Anyway, our big projects, which are our Main Street incubators, our pop-up markets, the Porter Park, Osler grant, as well as the Main Street parking lot project. So those are the ones we're locked into at this point anyway. Going through all of our operational budgets, which we're working through, and then our current fund balances for this year, including grants or accounts. What we're left with, and we'll get the details of all this next time, but what we're left with essentially is just about $4,412 $4.4 million for all capital outlays and capital projects. I put everything to one big pot on there. The list you have here, so excluding one that Brandon added, we'll talk about in a minute here for the Main Street projects. That's the money we have, that $4.4 million. Total capital requests right now are $5.86 million. So, and that includes most of these big projects coming through. There's some smaller projects in here as well, which we can obviously work on. Other big ones are those Main Street and Porter Park projects.
How much was that? Sorry, 5 million what? This is
What we're at, roughly what we're at is, so yeah, you have it, it's missing one brand, so I talked about in a moment.
Okay.
Payment.
What's the new?
Total capital requests are 5.869. These are estimates. We'll go get more detail on them, but that's roughly where we're at. So 5 million capital, a little over 4 million in
4.4 is what we did.
grants. Or what we have.
Thank you.
So one of the things we need to decide on is, and we'll talk about this, is our residential streets program that we do every year. That is something we need to sort of work through and decide what we want to do with those, which streets. That's really the big decision, honestly. We can look through all these now. We can, we'll send out more detail. We actually have detailed sheets of descriptions of all these projects you have in front of you, and I'll put that into a packet, email it out to you as soon as we sort of finalize these. But really, what do we have a say in that it's really going to make a difference? It's going to be that the Main Street, or not sorry, Main Street, but the residential roads program. So I'm going to have Brandon just talk about residential roads, what it is, generally how much we spend every year, and really is trying to decide what roads we want to do, how much we want to spend on those roads and what we're going to do. And that's really going to shape the rest of this, rest of these projects that we're able to do. So I'll help Brandon.
Okay, so I believe obviously all of you guys are familiar with the residential streets program. This started essentially, my understanding is back when the garbage was subsidized. From that point on, the village generally spent about $500,000 a year on road maintenance projects. Over the last few years, I would say, primarily during the COVID times, we did have some additional funding each year. So we've spent, I think, upwards of, it was about $1.2 million, I think, on the downtown projects, ranging, yes, typically anywhere between 500,000 and 700,000. So last year, actually, when Scott was starting the budget, he asked Troy and I to put together a list of project recommendations, roughly in that $500,000 to $700,000 range. Obviously, we know the funds are, I won't say shrinking, but we don't have as much funding available to do extra work on this yearly program. So what we have come up with is a list of projects, and not sure if you guys don't have access to ClearGov, I think right now. But essentially keeping consistent with what we recommended last year. If you recall, we recommended the Hidden Creek subdivision and Promontory Ridge subdivisions would be 2025, or I'm sorry, 2024. We ended up adding on, I believe, we added on the Hidden Creek roadways. Took out one of the cul-de-sacs, but that became our 2024 project. That was roughly in the $700,000 range. And at the time that we presented that request for 2025 road projects, so this coming up here, we presented roadways in the Roscoe Center subdivision, which is surrounding the library. That is Andrews Drive, Map Court, and Parkway Drive. And then also the Hodges Run subdivision. That includes Hodges Run, Hodges Way, Hazel Close, and Prairie Wind Place. So what you will see if you look into ClearGov, and I'll give
that in there. You put it.
Yes, yep, it is in there, but I can just give you some rough cost breakdowns. Essentially, keeping consistent with what we have done in the past years for pavement rehabilitation, we remove the existing pavement, pave back with localized base repair. These roads, one, they're not surfaced thick enough to be able to do a partial mill and overlay. We see typically anywhere from honestly 1.5 inches to 3 inches of asphalt. What we expect in these subdivisions, the Roscoe Center and Hodges Run, is probably about that 2 inches of asphalt. So there's really no way to, we could do a structural overlay on that and keep that existing pavement in place, but and we will eventually have pictures uploaded into the budget, but the pavement is completely deteriorated. It's alligator cracking. It needs to be fully replaced. So we are proposing a removal of the pavement, paved back with 3 inches, which is consistent with our current ordinance. And in order to do all of those roads, our estimated costs are about $577,182. So $575 to $600 it would take in order to resurface all of those roads. One thing that's important to note, we don't just choose these roads. We do have a street study document that was completed back in 2014 that actually gave pavement condition ratings to all of the roadways within the village. Back in 2022, staff did an update to that. We did our best estimate on what we think those current ratings are. Obviously, they deteriorated over the last 8 to 10 years. And the ratings for these roads fall anywhere between 68 on the numerical scale all the way down to 57. 60 for our street study recommendation, any rating 60 or below actually warrant full pavement replacement. Again, there's not really much saving we can do at this point. Obviously, with the Hodges Run subdivision, we are doing that project right on that property currently. We get a lot of resident complaints, and I think actually the last meeting we had a resident complain about they call him Mr. Christmas's property, where some of the road edges are deteriorating. Gets a lot of bus traffic. It's a very big cut through route from 2nd Street as well over to Main Street. So that is one of the reasons that we recommended Hodges Run, and then Roscoe Center is one of our worst rated roads within the village limits. So over the last 4 to 5 years, we've done a good job at increasing our roads program and completing maintenance on a lot of the roads that were the lower rated roads. Remington Creek used to be our lowest rated. We redid all of that, I believe, back in 2021 or 2022. We've done a lot of work in the Sagewood subdivision. Those are also a lot of roads that are pretty low on the ranking scale. But essentially, these two subdivisions are substantially the worst of the worst with our road ratings. So there are a handful of roads that you could pick from the entire list that may have a lower ranking than these, but we also try to keep in context is proximity. We don't want to be jumping around across the town because then prices go up from a contractor's perspective because they have to do a lot of trucking across town. They have to have multiple crews, things like that. So the Roscoe Center and Hodges Run to Troy and myself seems like the most logical next residential streets program. Again, we tried to keep it in that 500 to 700,000 range to keep consistent with years past. And obviously, we have a lot of capital projects that are coming up within the next few years. We also need to save money for our Main Street reconstruction, Willowbrook Road reconstruction, and Love Road reconstruction projects. Those are huge dollar amounts for those projects. So, but this, we feel with this project at 577,000, and then maybe an increased road patching program next year, somewhere in the neighborhood of probably $75,000 to $100,000, that we would be in a pretty good shape for this next coming up here. One of the documents that you will have loaded into the capital budget is a recommendation of additional considerations. That way, if the board decides that they want to do additional residential streets, then you can choose from a list of potential roadways that, again, have low ratings. They're high traveled, so they're going to deteriorate a little bit more quickly. And then they're generally grouped to be in close proximity to each other. But if we can, we always try to, like, for instance, these Roscoe Center and Hodges Run, they're small subdivisions. We can get the entire subdivision roadway network completely redone. Some of our bigger subdivisions, like, for instance, Crystal Hills, that's one subdivision that has a lot of failing roadways. And those we primarily target the what we call arterial routes or collector roads. Again, it's the main thoroughfares through the subdivision. So you will see us prioritize those all more than some of the, dead end cul-de-sacs or roads that might not have as many houses on them, because they frankly do not deteriorate as quickly as some of our higher traveled roads. So that's a brief summary, brief explanation of what we're presenting to you now. At the meeting on the 21st, we will have a lot more information, pictures showing the existing conditions of the roadways, and then a lot more additional considerations for roadways that we could potentially do maintenance on. So, yeah, I guess that's a high level summary. Obviously, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
So, can you break down what percentage or cost would be for Roscoe Center and Hodges Run? So it's 575 total, is it? So
Correct. So for Roscoe Center, let's do some quick math in my head. 235. It's about 300,000, maybe a little bit more for Roscoe Center, and then the remainder for Hodges Run.
Pretty even then.
Yeah, so then we always try to, again, keep things pretty even, because we understand, say the village doesn't want to do Hodges Run. We try to do the $250,000 increments again, because that's the next logical step. 500, which is what we originally planned on spending as a village back. I think that started in 2018. And then 750,000 is just that next logical increase. So
that makes sense. Thanks, Brandon.
Yep.
I like the Hodges Run. Fingers crossed, there's more traffic that might be going through there, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yep. And one thing to note, while I did say we traditionally just do a mill and overlay project, right? Once the roads are actually accepted, what myself, Troy, and the engineering team will do is do a drive-through of the subdivisions. Take notes if there's any potential drainage issues. Like, I know, for instance, Troy's guys have to replaced a culvert last year, I believe, or maybe the year before, on Andrews Circle. And then there's another culvert that needs to be replaced on Andrews Drive, if I'm not mistaken. So we do keep that in mind. Another item that we have added in years past is upgrading the radius returns to be concrete. We absolutely will look at that. My cost estimates do include pricing for that, but we may run into issues where, like this past year, where we were not able to implement those because where the culverts are constructed, there's not enough cover over the top of the pipes. Essentially, the roads have been constructed a few inches above those pipes, and so in order to get full depth concrete that's not going to crack after a few years, you're now laying concrete over culvert pipes, and it just doesn't have the structural integrity. And honestly, it'd be more of a maintenance nightmare than we would like to see. So We will look at widening some of these intersections with more pavement. We have gravel shoulders on these roadways, and a lot of the radius returns. The gravel shoulder goes from 2 feet along the mainline roadway to these intersections where it's 8 feet, 6 to 8 feet. And so we can look at paving extra areas for that to accommodate better turning movements for our large trucks, buses, garbage trucks, things like that.
For Hodges Run, did you take into consideration street parking or anything for the strip next to where we're looking at?
So no, that's just a signage thing. If you're gonna establish parking on a roadway, generally you want to have, I believe, 30 feet wide roads that accommodates 8 feet parking on, I guess I should say, if that's both sides of the road, 8 feet on each side, and then you still have a 14-foot travel lane in between. But fire department, I believe they like to see at least 22 feet of clear space. So parking along a lot of these roadways that are a general standard of 24 feet is not really possible.
Well, that main one next to the property we're gonna develop is what I'm talking about, coming off of Main Street.
So yeah, that would be handled just with signage, correct? So yeah, that park is going to have its own parking, but on street parking, I believe we're looking at potentially putting up some signs for no parking, but that needs to be a discussion with the police chief and obviously the board, if that's something that we want to implement.
I guess for me, I was thinking parking because it's tying into downtown.
And we absolutely could, I guess I
Maybe
just,
that comes
you know,
with Main Street gets
that comes with an added cost, right? And having parking so close to that intersection may be a little bit of a pain, so we'd have to look into that.
Property.
Yeah, we'd have to look into that a little bit more, but we do have some room over there if we wanted to. But I'm just generally, and I don't know how much it would be.
It was in your cost estimate.
No,
Right
no
now,
additional
just what's
parking. This
there.
is just the existing roadway and then the upgrades that we've done in the recent years of concrete radius returns.
Okay.
So just to add to that, like too, I mean, by ordinance,
I get it.
Yeah.
unless it's designated parking spots along that roadway.
Yeah.
By ordinance, all 4 tires would have to be off of the roadway.
Right, we'd have to create
Yeah.
actual parking.
Yeah, so
spaces.
it actually needs
That's
to
why
be
it's
an actual lane of
right.
parking.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that'd be tough to
Well,
implement
maybe
there.
that's later on when we
Right.
actually do Main Street
Exactly.
on that section, it'll just tie in with it or something. I
Yeah.
don't know, but.
And there will be, yeah, as part of the Main Street plan, there will be on-street parking all the way up to that point, I believe, so. But we can look into potential options as if we do, in fact, go forward with Hodges Run, that'll be something that, I'll work with Troy, and make sure that we have some options available at the
It might
very least,
be
and
worth
associated cost
Having an
estimates.
estimate.
Absolutely.
Because what is it, about 250,000 Hodges Run, roughly 300,000?
Roughly 300, yeah.
Yeah, so we have $450,000 on the road for.
Just so you know, I will do a brief summary of the other roads that we're looking at doing. Crystal Hills, this would be potentially a 2026 project. Leanna Drive on Crystal Hills, that's the other main north-south thoroughfare on that road. We've already done the more eastern roadway of Lismore. That's been completed in years past. Hawks Point, there's a few roadways within that network, again, primary thoroughfares that we would be looking at doing. Those are a little bit higher dollar amount at $678,000. Other subdivisions, Shepherd Hills, those ratings are pretty poor. They're in the high 60s or low 50s. Clear Wing subdivision, those are in the high 60s, low 70s. The Fry and Saddle Club subdivisions, which are just north of here. That's 3rd Street, Ada, Donald, Kelmore, Arena Drive. Those ratings are in the high 60s. So we've got a lot of infrastructure that needs repair, obviously a limited budget. And so we're presenting these projects to you based off ratings, pavement condition ratings and the amount of traffic they receive, but open to suggestions and love to hear your thoughts.
Is the $450,000 included in the 4.4 million? That we have,
This one, yes, correct.
so 450,000 we don't actually have for these other projects, 450,000 for roadways, right?
Unless you choose to skip doing roads.
Yeah.
in
The
2025.
residential road program that brings one over is included in this.
The 450,000 that we have, like, it has to be spent on road, right?
No,
No,
no.
we transfer the capital projects every year, correct, and we generally use it for residential roads.
Okay,
Correct.
so that's just been a long-standing feel
Correct.
good. We're putting
That
this money
number.
towards that.
Some years we have skipped doing residential roads to save dollars in order to do a bigger project.
Right.
So, for example,
I always thought there was a resolution.
No.
that's attached to that money.
No.
so.
Yes, that is included in that number I gave you for the total, yes. That's all of our capital outlays and capital projects.
Got it.
And then I got up here now, this is we're talking about that, so it's one of the numbers in here, so I'll add roadway maintenance to the project that Brandon went over, so this is where we're at and standing. These are the five committed capital projects we have, is that $4.4 million. That would be the Hodges Run Incubator Project, phase 2 of Porter Park, Main Street multi-use, finishing that up, paying those. And then, so that that'll probably be the seven, that's that number, and then the residential roads at 577 is what Brandon just went over, based on your recommendations. So those roads that Brandon went over, is that what we are interested in doing? I mean, is there a discussion about that? Do we want to do the roads as recommended by our engineer? We have thoughts on that area?
Multi-use parking lot, haven't we spent some of this money already?
Some of that might go, not having any change for those yet. Design, that's not including that number.
So it's taken.
It's pulled out. There's the
Sorry,
prior,
this is
the
just
24,900.
completely different than what we were.
Yeah,
So
no,
I know you're
and I'm
changing
going
things
to,
for
yeah.
better, but.
I just realized what's taken so long, make sure everybody does realize, I apologize for how long it's taken, but what we're doing is right now we're matching up our Casella, which is our accounting system, with the spreadsheet the document that you get in a budget process every year, as well as the account that Mark gives you those year dates. All of those are separate right now. They don't match up with each other. The names of the accounts and the numbers don't necessarily match up with each other. So it's taking a long time to go through all of that very detailed. It's been a project, but eventually we'll have everything matched up where we'll be able to run reports from Casella, from ClearGov, from Mark's spreadsheets, and they'll all match up. They should all just reflect each other. It shouldn't matter where you go for that. So that is the goal of this. That's why it's taken so long, because we're sort of really cleaning up the entire system. And then standardizing across accounts. My goal for this is, I told staff today too, is my goal for this is for you, the trustees, for the public, for staff, to be able to look at your department budget on the website, on ClearGov, wherever, and know how much it costs to operate that department and know where we're at in the operations of that department. Currently, you are not able to do that consistently. Staff is not able to do that consistently. So that is my goal for this. So that is what we're doing, but, okay.
I think what would be helpful, Joe, is also to stage this out by years, right? So Brandon's saying like where
Correct.
we're at. And like, so we're just saying, okay, what did we talk about? Oh, Shepherd Hills last year,
Yep.
Fox Point. So I think that, you have to look at it like, here's,
Yep.
and things can change, they can move up and they can move down, but coming from an experience of Promontory, we would have, when are the roads gonna be done, when are the roads?
Yeah.
At least if we knew, well, it's scheduled or targeted tentatively, it's not,
So we have that document you're asking.
We have two.
Yeah,
We have that, we have the document, and we can get that out and put it publicly.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying, I mean, and it should
Yeah.
be something where
Yeah.
people,
Can go and
somebody
see their
put it
road
up or
program.
Whatever it is, I
Yeah.
think that should be something that we should have
Yep,
on there, because I'm looking at this, and I agree with Brandon, I think, the two projects would make sense, but then what I'm looking at is what's gonna happen in 2026, is it gonna be Sagewood, is it gonna be Hawks Point, is it,
you guys have, and we have those, and we'll get back, yeah, we have, is it in you clear in yours this year?
I have not put it in this
Okay,
year's yet,
we'll give
but
you a
when
copy
we
of it
upload
again.
the pictures
Yeah.
and things like that, we will be able to provide an update.
Yeah.
When the village went after the sales tax referendum, there was
We
an
put
actual
together-
5-year plan
Yeah.
for with the additional expenses and without. We have bounced around a little bit, but substantially, we have kept consistent with that plan. And then we did an update, this was last year, providing a recommendation for the next 5 years. But that wasn't an official, voted on document per se. It was more of just a guiding document. From staff perspective and my perspective, I would love to have an adopted plan in place because it takes any question out of it, right? Residents, you get residents that are genuinely curious. They want to know when their road's getting done. They may or may not disagree, but it makes staff's job a lot easier because we can say, hey, we're following the road program that's been adopted. by
And
the
when
council.
you guys all adopt that, makes us a lot of job easier too, because then we can say, yep, the board approved this, we know what we're doing next year. And we've had some times where we've sort of bounced around there based on preferences and personal preferences. But if the board can say, yeah, this is what we're gonna stick to, that would be, plus or minus if the road, caves in, I suppose, but that would be great for us too. So yeah, we can bring that forward to everybody as well.
So the roads program is on the sheet that you gave us.
Roads program is in there.
Yeah.
It's,
Isn't that what we were talking about?
I was talking about, it was a different one, sorry. Yes,
Oh, okay.
roads
So
program
you
is that
added
number.
something else to the-
That is number. The other number is what, if you want to go over the Main Street.
Okay.
Yes, that's what I was thinking the wrong one. So yeah, it is included, this program he's talking about is included in our
Okay, sorry.
plan here.
Something else.
You want to discuss?
All right, so yeah, Main Street, that is as you guys know, Fairgrame is currently underway with the design. There's a lot of stuff with Place Foundry going on as far as future planning. Per Carol and Joe's request, they asked Fairgrame to put together a cost estimate for completion of at least one chunk of Main Street, what we're classifying as phase one. Originally, we would have loved to get all the way to Bridge Street. Obviously, that's the downtown entrance point. And again, this is starting from just north of McDonald Road, about the YMCA entrances, carrying up north. We wanted to get all the way to Bridge Street. Unfortunately, the way that the design needs to happen and the construction needs to happen is you have to construct everything based on the drainage basins. You constructed the low point, if you recall, we're converting that to curb and gutter and storm sewer. It's currently a rural cross-section, ditches, combined with a little bit of storm sewer. But essentially, there is a box culvert at Rural Edge Drive, and that is our lowest point. So all of our storm sewer has to dump into that point. So for the roadway improvements, it makes the most sense that that's your logical stopping point for a potential project. So Fairgrame put together a cost estimate for improvements to total reconstruct of Main Street, conversion to the urban section, curb and gutter and storm sewer, extended from the YMCA entrance, the southern entrance, north to Rural Edge intersection. That comes with a cost of total $1.692 million. Very expensive project. That includes also some additional design engineering. Fairgrame's contract currently is to reconstruct Main Street in totality. Because we have to phase this project, we have to come up with interim plans to tie in our improvement limits to the existing roadway network. So Fairgrame put together a proposal for additional design engineering. It's about 3% of the project cost, but that is a $45,900 additional design fees that would be required in order to get a biddable set of plans that a contractor could actually construct. So again, total, that project is $1.692 million.
Is there a reason why it doesn't go to McDonald?
Well, if I may, the stopping point then, if that were to be done, gives us a road that is only half done. So then you have from the box culvert to the intersection of Bridge Street, still with Humpty Dumpty and everything else. So the second plan was to not do the full urban standard and redo what's there in order to correct the road, right? And when all of this was first decided by previous individuals, none of us were consulted as to what we wanted this to look like, whether it was going to be the full-blown urban standard of curb, gutter, and so on and so forth. So now comes along trying to do things a little bit differently and a different look at how you might be able to do different legs of this project. So the question before you is, do you want to postpone this indefinitely? Because by the time you try to do that whole thing, we have escalating costs. What are they going to be? $40 million by the time we're all done, bearing the utilities and all of that? or do it incrementally and have Plan B from the Y to Bridge Street, leaving this middle for last because that's the bigger lift with the utilities, and then the other two elevator. And to answer your question, why just from the Y, as Brandon had indicated before, to go further south involves the intersection, and then you have to involve the state of Illinois. And doing an intersection is something we can't afford to do, and they're not going to do. So we
That
would
was kind of where I was going,
do our road.
is their trucks use that, and they're big trucks,
In and out. all
in
the
and
time.
out 24/7. So leaning on them. And I don't know how far it is. I mean, I don't want to even guess, but I mean, if we start here and we tell the state, we're doing the road, so you need to
Well, and so it's a village initiated improvement. So in theory, we would be responsible for upgrading the intersection.
Respond to us when we own the road.
Yeah, the issue with that intersection is the proximity of the frontage road to the 251 intersection. And to get the signal phasing and timing to work out to get acceptable levels of service, which is just essentially the safety rating and the amount of time that somebody sits at a stoplight to make their turning movement or go through. It was virtually impossible to meet IDOT criteria and standards for that. And the intention of doing that project was to utilize MFT funds. And since we're utilizing MFT funds, we have to abide by their standards, and they essentially have to approve that. So what we did is we said, okay, well, we can potentially do a project. We can move the termini further north and avoid that intersection altogether. So that is the reason why we chose the YMCA entrances as the starting point.
And then I had asked Brandon, okay, what would be an alternative if we could repair, because it is a residential street? What would be the alternative way to repair that residential street, because it is the entrance to Roscoe? And so going the whole way, but abandoning the full-blown urban standard comes in at considerably less, correct?
Yes,
Being able to do the length of it.
yeah, and so, and we have, admittedly, we haven't put together a cost estimate for what that scaled down version is. It would be less, yes, if we didn't look at converting that in totality. Absolutely, because you're gonna cut out storm sewer costs.
Probably
Yes.
high proposal for that. Yeah, I thought we talked about that.
So,
So it would leave the drainage as it currently is and repair the road and do the bike path and the shoulders. The curb gutter changing.
Could you do like the B ditch?
I mean, yeah, that's essentially what it operates as right now, is a ditch section. They're not standard depth ditches, but it does operate as a ditch
Well, I
system.
mean, concrete B ditches.
Just so concrete really, I mean, that the capacity is roughly the same. It does, water drains faster on concrete as opposed to a ditch section. You also get permeation benefits from using the ditch section, but concrete drives up project costs exponentially. So yeah, I guess I wanna look back in my records and see what cost estimates I know our team put together, Fair Graham. I didn't put the cost estimates together, but I do want to go back and look at that, so I apologize for not knowing off the top of my head.
Aesthetically,
We had,
what's
yeah,
nice from
Yeah.
urban down to, do we wanna go straight urban to straight rural, or do we wanna have some sort of?
I think part of the
You
issue
wanna
is
do
the
it in your
drainage.
lifetime.
Yeah.
Or not do it.
Might
I mean,
not.
the money isn't going to be there to do this in a reasonable amount of time.
What, for the utilities, what, do they make other types of poles that are more aesthetically pleasing to not bury them? Metal or something like that? 'Cause I know that was.
I think more pricey though
Over
too,
10
yeah,
million
no, that's the
dollars,
issue.
It
It
might only
was-
be a few million.
Yeah, but it
versus
still
10.
doesn't
majority-
eliminate the ugly one right
Yeah,
in front of this building.
the
but that'd be
majority
nicer
of the
looking.
cost was the,
Christmas trees.
yeah, was engineering, not majority cost. A big chunk of it was engineering
Right.
cost too, it was like 400,000, I think,
Right.
to just do the engineering from ComEd, and we pay them upfront just to do the engineering to design where the poles are going, where the new wires are going, for burying it, so it's insane.
Right. But
Anyway.
back to the issues. What I would like to see is fund balances. And have from fund balances subtracting our non-discretionary spending. And have a clear indication of how many dollars remain to accomplish various things. So obviously there won't be enough to do all of this. And that will be the hard decision making because we already are committed to spending the parking lot dollars, as you know, the incubator project and Porter Park Phase 2. So those are already spoken for. So once you subtract those dollars from the available funds, just what amount of money are we talking
That's
about?
that number I just had up. I will
You're
pull it
saying
back up.
4 million?
No, hold it back up right now. The number we have to spend on everything is that 4 million. I'll pull up the date we just had it up there. Pull up here.
But subtracting the
Yep.
$3,598,753 for Main Street, Hodges and Porter Park? Porter Park, 600,000 was a grant.
So including the or the residential roads that we just talked about. That the total number is 4,475,858. That will subtract. So it's, yeah, $4,475,858. That includes those 5 projects. Oh, that also includes the 5th project on there is potential property purchase, which is also something we've talked about in the past, and that is included in that budget as well, you'll see. So those are the 5 projects we're considering we're already committed to, right? Those 3 Main Street projects, the property purchase, and then residential roads. That hits 4,475,858. And so we do total minus that. We are at minus $63,000. That does not include any MFT funds. So that would be where that balance would make up. When we were talking about, we use those usually for salt. That's, 400,000, right? Roughly salt every year. We haven't spent a lot this year, so we do have a higher MFT balance than we have had in the past. That number you have does not include that. So the current estimated MFT end of the year would be $1.8 million, which is higher than it's been in quite some time. So that's where, if there are some of these additional projects, it covers some of those. That's where that additional funds would come from, or that's where you would sort of keep that balance rolling forward until you can do the, a Main Street project. That would be something you probably want to consider for next year. Then is keeping that roll that MFT forward. Yes, some of it's going to be used for, it'll be used for salt or for capacity patching, but that would be your sort of your fund to use and save up for that project on Main Street. So
What about the reserves that we have?
this counts the reserves. This includes that. So brings the number that 4 million, I already said that the total I called it the total non-MFT for all capital outlays, right? The total money we have to spend is at $4.4 million. That includes drawing down our general fund to the 33% of
Okay.
operating expenses. So it does include, that moved in there. That is the number of what you got to spend on.
And
you
we've
know,
got
We have
8.7 million.
$4.4 million in projects, and we've got $4.4 million in roughly pretty close actually, in, capital outlays, not including MFT.
So just our main big projects.
Main big projects.
$63,000 in the hole.
Correct, for those big ones.
That's
And
not,
again,
that's not including the laptops, the traffic.
not including laptops, the traffic signs, it's not including,
Nothing in
any
anything else.
stuff, including those things, everything's not zero, it is including that stuff.
Okay.
Oh, no, you're right, no, sorry, no, it's not. This
It's
number is
big
including
projects.
those, you're correct.
Good.
And it's also not including, which is not on this sheet, estimates that we've talked about in past years, salt shed roof, it's not including Riverside Park, and some of this we can maybe get donations for. Some of
The
these might come
salt shed
under.
roof wasn't done this year?
No, that's, we. Got a lot, yeah, we have these, a lot of these projects we've got here, so, and include, we absolutely need to do the, Riverside Park Pavilion. So hopefully we can, move funds on that and get, if we can. Move things around, move funds, or hopefully save on things as we're going through there. I would like definitely to get that Riverside Park, Pavilion rebuilt next year. We got, there's we've got some offers of donations and that, grant maybe we could do, and then mixed with some donations we have from some local businesses. But yeah, that's what we're looking at. We're sort of past the time. We have a lot of grant money coming in from the COVID money, and that's sort of done at this point, right? So we are, we do have, and it's not that we don't have the money, we just have some lot of big projects we're doing, right? We do, we've got, that's, $1.5 million, that's 800,000. The park over there is 1.2. We've got a lot of big projects happening all at once. So this may be a year of just focusing on those big projects, and then, next year we start working on some other smaller ones.
So the Porter Park will get $600,000 back, but we don't
Yes.
get that back till we spend the 120.
Correct.
So
And that's not,
we
yeah,
won't have that till next
The-
year for budget. Yeah.
the revenue on that though is not included, is the expense for that is not included on here though. So I'm only counting our share of it. Yeah, correct. Yeah, because that is a pay as you go, or yeah, that's a pay as you go or reimbursable. So that means,
Yeah, we would get reimbursed up
Correct.
to 600.
On Hodges Run, does this 1.5 reflect donations?
it is not. So if we get donations, couple $100,000, it helps, right? Absolutely does. So it does not reflect donation. This just reflects the budgeted costs for that
So we've
project.
already got commitments.
Yep. So when those. yeah,
Betsy said
through-
she'll need the money.
Please,
Yeah.
they're committed.
Yeah, no, what I'm saying is, we're gonna budget though,
You have to budget as if it's not going to be
but yeah,
there.
absolutely, that opens up money for, Riverside, opens up money for other projects as well. Yeah, these are budgeted amounts, these are the project amounts, so.
All the
That's where-
while realizing that non-discretionary costs have also gone up for 2025, and so you haven't seen what the bottom line is for those operating costs. The cost and increase in insurance
So.
and other things, and payroll, of course. So for 2024, what we had over 7.5 million, 7.7 million expended.
Yeah.
Through November 30th. Figure your operating budget will be about, and that doesn't include any of these special projects, but $8 million.
We'll do a deep dive on the 21st.
Yep. So I think that's where we are, so back to our recommendation, so I think we're sort of set for. Capital projects, so we'll get those plugged in and. Keep it moving.
Can I ask one thing
Yes.
that always throws me off? Can you just put in what we have to do into the budget and then leave the other stuff out separate so I can see that?
Yeah.
Instead of me sitting here trying to do the math in the meeting. Of what we can and cannot do and stuff like that.
Yeah. I will give
Just
you-
go, okay, we could do this, no, we can't do that, sorry.
Yes,
Yep.
along with
Yep.
current fund balances.
That was one thing that I was probably, I have to sit here and do tons of math while we're talking.
Yeah, these are all.
Thank you.
So moving on to public comment again.
Very Donald Drive. Listening to you folks talk. When you were talking about the water tower and getting public input on design. And then Mike Simon made a comment in the beginning, which I didn't hear the full comment. And I know you can't talk back to me. But my comment was, how about at the same time, which I've been brushed off before about my comment, is about getting public input on design for the side of Mary Shear Artistry, a new design for the side of that building. I brought this up before, and it seems to get brushed under the table. So I believe your responsibility as village trustees is to listen to comment that the citizens bring forward. And it's never been brought up as new business. And I'd like that to be brought up in a future meeting. So I understand that the village possibly does have a bucket truck now that they own. And I think it would be a good idea, since you're talking about beautifying Main Street and Main and Bridge and the corner where Little Birdie was that you're flattening out now. You want to beautify the area, cover up that scribbling on the side of Mary's Artistry and take some public input and see what we can do to make that pretty. As I brought up once before, Rockford, Loves Park and McChesney Park have some beautiful designs on the side of their building. What have we got? A dull blue and brown, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what it is. We need to do something there. Let's bring it up in public opinion. Let's get some ideas for that and the water tower at the same time. Now, also, Joe brought up that there's been commitments on, what was the term Joe referred to? Was it Hodges
Run.
Run? Okay, money has been committed. Okay, there has been money pledged for scribbling on the side of Mary Shear Artistry. It was pledged, but the money was never committed.
Correct.
So the village had to pay all that money. So does pledged and committed mean the same thing? I would say it does. So somebody please bring up in the future that this gets put on the agenda. Thanks for listening.
All right, presentations, we've already discussed, closed session. Completed. Motion for adjournment, can I have somebody motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
What are these?
Oh, sorry, one last thing before we vote on it. Trustees, if you have the, have you opened up here? These are what we gave the staff this year, try to get everybody for, we've done it for a while, get everybody from the same. Team work. This is actually the old logo because I don't care for the new logo, for the permanent, so I like retro. But yeah, this is what
We're on a water
we
tower.
provided the staff, so all the staff are using those, figure something would be useful that they would, sort of fire fast out there. So, but that, yeah, those are what those are.
Thank you.
For the trustees. So,
Thank you.
that, I feel like that will be the back logo on there, but with that.
It's in running now.
We're gonna vote really quick and then we can adjourn.
That back.
We're all in favor. We can just vote, yeah.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we are adjourned at 9:04 PM officially.
No, I'm like, he's like, hold on, we gotta hold on.
Yes, I like these.
A long time.